Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Vicky Jelly and I'm the Mayor of Warrnambool City Council. I'll be chairing tonight's council meeting. I'd like to formally welcome everyone here tonight and also everyone watching the live stream of this meeting. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with council's governance rules, and any interruptions to meetings or actions not in line with behavioural expectations will be dealt with in accordance to these rules. Of course, tonight we're all wearing masks, so if you're speaking, you're able to take the mask off and then put it back on when you've finished. I'd like to ask all councillors and everyone to stand for the opening prayer and acknowledgement to the traditional owners. We will now proceed to the items on the agenda, commencing with the opening prayer and acknowledgement to the traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. Are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? No, doesn't seem to. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, at item 4 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the meeting. Councillors, are there any questions before I seek a motion on this? The scheduled meeting was of a council held on the 5th of July 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arnott, thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Agenda item number 4, conflicts of interest. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest tonight? No. Thank you. None noted. Item number 5, mayoral presentation. This evening I'd like to warmly welcome the participants in this year's Leadership Great South Coast group. I understand there's about half of the group here tonight, so welcome, and we're very pleased that you've come to listen to our meeting. Leadership Great South Coast provides an annual community leadership program for aspiring and emerging leaders drawn from all sectors of the Great South Coast region, not just Warrnambool. The inaugural program commenced in May 2012. The excellent program builds relationships and networks between the business and community and government sectors. Participants are drawn from all 3 sectors, allowing participants to benefit from a variety of perspectives when considering the nature of leadership and the future of our community and its economic prosperity. So welcome everyone tonight and appreciate your interest. It's been an exciting week watching and hearing the results of the Australian Olympic team in Tokyo. It's been a difficult time for them all to get over there, so congratulations to all participants, especially locals we've got a couple from Warrnambool and the region, Camperdown, Casterton, other areas. So it's great to recognise the dedication of those people and the contribution they are making representing our country for us in a difficult time over there. And the final thing in the mayoral report is, on behalf of all the councillors and staff at Warrnambool City Council, I'd like to wish Councillor Paspaliaris very well as she embarks on her maternity leave at the end of this week. It's an exciting time ahead for yourself and your family, so we wish you well and look forward to meeting the new baby. Thank you. Item number 6, public question time. All questions must be received no later than 2 hours before the commencement of the scheduled council meeting or 4 p.m. on the day of the scheduled council meeting, where it is scheduled to commence at 5:45 p.m, in which the question is to be asked. 30 minutes will be allocated at each meeting for public question time. Where the 30 minutes allocated has been exhausted, a motion to extend must be put and passed for public question time to be extended. CEO, are there any public questions tonight?
Mayor, we have a number of questions tonight. The first one is from Mr David Thompson and Mr Steve Tippett.
Okay, if Mr Thompson and Mr Tippett are here, if they'd like to move up to the lectern, we'll be able to hear you much better there. Thank you.
Our question is concerning the proposed rabbit-proof fence for the Jetty Flat Oval that was put forward in the agenda of the July 5th council meeting, and it was approved by councillors. The agenda explains that this fence was explored by the Parks and Gardens Department and the Recreation Unit, and also independently, and they found that this fence will prevent rabbits from entering the oval. Could you please name the independent consultant referred to in this agenda? It also states that this fence is both aesthetically pleasing and highly effective, and has been used to address similar issues created by rabbits at many sporting venues, including the Killarney Recreation Reserve, with excellent results. Having had some experience with rabbit-proof fencing ourselves, it took only a glance at the photographs and drawings of the proposed fence to see it is not a rabbit-proof fence at all. We visited the Killarney Recreation Reserve to view the fence that this proposal is based on, and found that it is not in any way a rabbit-proof fence at all, as is evidenced by the amount of damage on the oval caused by the many rabbits freely entering the oval every night. Where it can only be described as a pretty new picket fence. When Council Parks and Gardens Department, along with Recreation Unit, inspected the fence at Killarney, did they deem it to be a rabbit-proof fence? Does Council believe it appropriate to put a proposal to councillors for approval to spend $80,000 of ratepayer money on a project that is clearly not fit for purpose? The photo of the proposed fence in the agenda showed pickets protruding above the top rail of the fence, which is dangerous for any kid who jumps the fence, and yet the illustration shows the top rail to be the top of the fence. Which one of those is correct? Why is there no paperwork from Russell Creek Cricket Club supporting the proposal printed in the agenda? We also have quite a bit more on the costings and whatnot. So if any councillor would like to come and speak to myself or Steve after the meeting, we can show you quite a few more things with this. But this has been put before you to vote on, and I'm afraid someone's been pulling your leg, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
If I just add something too.
Oh, sorry?
This is not about the fence per se. The fence is probably required. I've got no problems with the fence being built. What we're concerned about is that $80,000 of ratepayers' money is going to be wasted. And I mean totally wasted, because it just can't be done. Not in the format that you've got it.
Thank you, Mr Tippett. Mayor, the proposed fence at Jetty Flats has been developed and improved upon from the Killarney installation. As I understand, the Russell Creek Cricket Club president liaised with the Killarney Cricket Club president regarding their installation and continued problems with rabbits. Just for reference, Killarney's installation was never completed and was more about the aesthetic look on the oval, I understand. The key learnings were used to develop the solution at Jetty Flats, so some of those differences are that in Killarney there is no concrete plinth associated with the structure, and at Jetty Flat a concrete plinth has been installed which is 300 millimetres wide and 200 millimetre deep around the entire perimeter to restrict rabbits from burrowing under the fence. Killarney had a 25 metre area of no fence in front of their pavilion, whereas the Jetty Flat one will have an entire oval perimeter be fenced with no gaps for rabbits to enter the field of play. The fence pickets installed at Killarney are at 50 millimetre gaps. The fence pickets to be installed at Jetty Flat are 36 millimetre. And at Killarney, there's a 60 millimetre gap from bottom of the picket to the ground, and in Jetty Flat, there's a 30 millimetre gap from top of the concrete plinth to the bottom of the picket. The PVC type material is the highest quality PVC available. It's aesthetically pleasing and specifically designed for lasting strength. In terms of whether it will be 100% rabbit-proof, my understanding is there's no fence that is completely rabbit-proof, but the chosen design will minimise the effects by limiting the access as much as possible. It should be noted really that the works are likely to be completed for considerably less than the suggested $80,000, and that other works at the site to restrict vehicle access to points of the reserve will also be implemented. I understand also that the finished design, there was a question mark about the pickets versus having a rail at the top, which is safer for children, that the finished design will be the one with the rail at the top.
Okay, thank you very much. The second public question is Mr Hoolan. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. In light of the response I received from Warrnambool City Council CEO Mr Schneider to my questions at the previous Warrnambool City Council meeting regarding the lack of maintenance of Norfolk Island trees by Council and their encroachment into private residences causing damage to residential properties, I wish to ask the following questions. Why does Council continue to plant large inappropriate trees which cause damage to our infrastructure, both to council, businesses and residential properties? Why has Council planted hoop pines which grow to a height of 60 metres within 4 metres of private houses and plane trees under infrastructure in the CBD? Does Council believe they have a responsibility to protect residents and business properties from future damage by these inappropriate plantings? When 90% of natural vegetation has been removed from our local area, does Council believe it has a responsibility to correct this ecological vandalism by planting native trees to our area, not trees from far north Queensland and the like? Does Council believe there should be an urgent rewrite of our tree policy to place a much higher priority on local Indigenous species, ones which not only feed and attract native birds and improve the ecosystem, but also enhances our unique vegetation? And also, at Council's last public meeting, I stated that I had an on-site meeting with the Head of Infrastructure, Mr David Lay, voicing my deep concern at the trip hazard on a footpath in Timor Street. That trip hazard still remains. Has Council been made aware of the elderly residents who a number of years ago fell and severely injured themselves on that exact tripped hazard? And what were the ramifications for them after the fall? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hewlin. Mayor, the Council has avoided planting inappropriate species in areas that may suffer damage as a result where we possibly can. The trees mentioned as hoop pines and plane trees will be planted in areas such as reserves where they have the appropriate space to grow and not cause damage. The Norfolk pines have been planted in spaces where trees, that is Norfolk folk trees, have been removed. The tree policies do not require an urgent rewrite, as many of the species included in it will only be planted in suitable locations. Council tries to utilise as many local species as possible. We're not really aware of the circumstances of the trip on Timor Street and the ramifications after the fall, but I'd be happy to liaise with Mr Hewlin about the details of that if he can provide them so that I can follow that up. And I understand the design for a solution to that tripping hazard to eliminate the material from washing down the laneway has been completed, and the works can be scheduled in conjunction with the annual sealing contract works to take place in the future.
Excuse me, can I just ask another question after that response, please?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, well, Mr Schneider, I make exception to the fact that I make excuses for the actually look at where you live and you go into Mortlake Road, have a look at the trees that are planted within 4 metres of residential properties. They don't tell me they don't exist, because they do. And as far as the maintenance or the trip hazard, we have staff that go around the town every day picking up twigs and whatever else. This is a situation where that footpath should be cleaned every day if it needs to be. And if you think that pushing the gravel up the laneway is not going to come straight back down again and cause the same trip hazard again, ask your children what would happen if they did that. Because they'll tell you the same situation is going to arise.
Thanks, Mr. Hoolan.
A lot more than what we're getting.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Mr. Jim Burke.
Good evening. On June 1st last year, Council considered a planning permit application amendment for 43 to 45 Haley Drive. The original permit had been issued in 2006. It received a 2-year extension in 2008, another in 2010, then in 2012 and another in 2014. A 1-year extension in 2016 and a further 2-year extensions in 17 and 19. There are also 7 amendments to conditions attached to the permit during the life of this permit. The 2019 amendment related to the site and the floor plan and the display of signage. Council's minutes indicate that the council minutes indicate that similar community concerns have been expressed on each occasion that it's come before Council since its original approval in 2006. On the 1st of June 2019, the Council reluctantly approved this amended planning permit application, which was at the same time provided another extension till 24th of June this year. My question is, has an application been received in regard to this outstanding planning permit? If so, has it been acted on, and what was the outcome? And if no application has been received, what action has the Council taken to ensure that this matter is resolved in a timely manner?
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mayor, in relation to the application, that was determined at the council meeting where several conditions were imposed, including the commencement and completion time. The permit is current at the moment and has to comply with all conditions. And if the development is not completed within the prescribed time frame, if an application is received to extend those time frames, council must assess it on its merits of that application.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Mr. Burke, you've got a second question?
Yes, I have. So you haven't received an application at this time?
Not to my knowledge, no.
No. Well. This is a more general question. In cases where activity, usually requiring a planning permit from Warrnambool City Council, has commenced or has been completed, but where a permit has not been sought or has been denied, does the Council have a policy to guide its staff on how they may or must resolve the issue, and is that policy publicly available? Does the Council have a governance role in this otherwise operational matter? And does the Council have recourse to any punitive action in these matters?
Mayor, the responses to those questions are that the enforcement of the planning scheme is guided by the provisions of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and its associated guidelines and practice notes. Those documents are publicly available on the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning website. And depending on the issue that's subject to enforcement and its particulars, adherence to the provisions of the Planning Scheme and Planning and Environment Act 1987 are undertaken by Council. And subject to the particular matter, which sometimes results in issues becoming of a legal nature, an assessment of the actions it is required to undertake is made.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Burke. Thank you. Mr. Schneider. Okay, thank you. The agenda. Councillors, we are now moving to the officers' report section of the agenda. I'd like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply to close the debate. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist with councillors with time limits, you will hear a signal when you have reached the maximum time allowed. I would ask you to respect these time limits, please. Agenda item number 7, reports. 7.1, planning application PP 2020-0137, 70 Younger Street, Warrnambool, agenda page number 5. This report recommends that Council determine to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit PP 2020-0137 for a 20-lot subdivision of land, including common property, driveway and earthworks within the floodplain at 70 Younger Street, Warrnambool. Councillors, are there any questions before I seek a motion? No? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
I would like to move a motion that the Council accept the Council Officer's recommendations that a planning permit be approved to the developer of 70 Younger Street. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion further?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I've never seen so many conditions and provisions totalling 42 to grant a permit of application to the developers of 70 Younger Street into 20 lots. If the developers are prepared to apply and conform to all these conditions, I have no objection to grant a permit of application to the developers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, thank you. Yes, there's certainly been an extensive amount of conditions applied to this lot. It is a 20-lot subdivision and public notice was carried out and there were 7 objections received from the surrounding property owners. I fully can understand the objections that were raised. Some of them were around the proposed drainage and flood response, the removal of native vegetation and the neighbourhood character and amenity impacts, as well as the traffic impact. I feel these concerns are valid. I personally struggle a little bit with the number of dwellings on the block. However, the blocks have been deemed to be on an average larger than the surrounding estates, which Merview Estate has 46 lots in it. The developer has been able to demonstrate that 20 lots will work and the stormwater generated will be contained in the site. So upon provision of the developer being able to adhere to all the recommendations and compliance issues, I'm happy to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak? Councillor Blaine.
We've seen some exceptional growth in Warrnambool over the past year, especially with COVID. The inward migration that we've seen to our wonderful city has been amazing, and one of the biggest things is we're running short of housing stock. So this is exciting to see that there is more housing and, people are prepared to invest here in Warrnambool. Look, I understand the concerns of the residents with the 20-lot development, but it does fit in with the town planning guidelines. There's going to be earthworks moving fill to mitigate the flooding risks to this site. There's been a substantial amount of work, as both Councillor Arnott and Councillor Taylor have said, in trying to make sure that this development complies with all of the relevant guidelines. It's good to see that. It's good to see the investment in the town. I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Ziegler.
Our planning laws, Mayor, do not protect the incumbent neighbours who never envisaged this kind of development happening in their area. It's too dense. 20 houses on that block is far too dense for the nature of that neighbourhood. It might be legal and it might comply with all the planning laws, but it's not right, in my opinion. And the law is on the side of the developer in this case, who understandably wants to maximise his investment without, in this case, due consideration of the objections. Certainly they've made modifications to the plans and amendments, and there is a lot of conditions attached. But the neighbours still, in this case, must feel that they're fairly powerless if we allow it to go through. A developer who's clever can likely factor in VCAT costs into his development if it doesn't go through. The only defence that a neighbour has is a sympathetic council. And I, for one, have sympathy and I will vote against the damage that such a development will do to the neighbourhood.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Accoy.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry. I do acknowledge the proposed development plan. It is consistent with the objectives of planning scheme, but considering the density of population that will be in that area, which is squeezed between Mary River and the ocean, I think it cannot be suitable for 20-lot subdivisions. If we take, for example, 20 dwellings, like one house have 2 or 3 or 4 cars, that's become around 70 or 80 cars on that small area, with only one street going into town, shared with Maryview state population. It is absolutely difficult now, and it will be more difficult in future. I will support the original plan of 12 or 10 subdivision on 70 Younger Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris.
My sentiments are reflected with Councillor Ziegler in the sense that the application, when I've read it in terms of the lot yield calculations, if someone was reading this, would average 1,022 square metres. But in fact, there are only 3 lots that exceed this average and a 4th that comes close. The remaining 17 lots are well under this average. My concern is the increased traffic to this street and area with another recent subdivision taking shape nearby, as well as if, from a personal point of view, just because a planning application ticks all of the appropriate boxes does not mean that it is ideal, and it can have a far greater impact on general amenity in reality. And yes, it's privately owned land, but does council and the broader public value lovely large properties as they are at 70 Younger Street, properties that break up the housing infill of established areas with a beautiful outlook for neighbours and passers-by, because I certainly do value that. Another aspect to consider is also a distinct lack of infrastructure in this area, an issue that was brought up by some of the objectors, such as basic footpaths, which do not exist on either side of the road on the western end of Younger Street, and a lack of traffic calming treatments, which I assume will most definitely be required in the long term. This development does require construction of its own footpaths for its immediate vicinity, but this still leaves council with work to do in planning and implementing footpaths along other areas of Younger Street in general, which of course I assume will be looked at, but I wonder how long this will take to come to fruition, which is another concern of mine. There's an additional issue mentioned about council's waste collection vehicles not being able to turn in the 9-metre common property court bowl without reversing, and that provisions would be required or made for waste collection. Overall, I'm not opposed to some progress, and yes, there are numerous conditions as part of the permit. However, I would prefer a lesser number of lots on this land. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just also like to say that all the points put in by council and everything they've looked at, and I want to ensure that the developer does adhere to everything that's specified in the conditions as per the council recommendations, and definitely look at future development of footpaths and traffic management towards the golf club entrance and down that end. So yes, that must be adhered to. There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak and close the debate?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Okay. 4 in favour, 3 against. The motion's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.2, proposed amendment to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme, Deakin University. Agenda page number 18. This report recommends that Council seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare an amendment to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme in relation to planning scheme amendment request received from Myers Planning Group on behalf of Deakin University to rezone land at lots 1 and 2, LP 133034, 10635, Princess Highway, Warrnambool, for educational purposes. Okay, councillors, are there any questions before we go ahead with this one? No? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
That we accept the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. This is a really exciting development for our city. This is setting Deakin up to be a leader in hydrogen technology for not only the state, but I'd say the country. It's just an expansion on the current Deakin footprint. So the land's already owned by Deakin. We're just changing the zoning so that as the hydrogen project continues to move along, we can see we'll be able to get building and get our hydrocell facility. The exemption's being put to the Minister to try and streamline the process in preparation. It is council supporting innovation development of Deakin, keeping it here in our municipality, and supporting the future energy technologies of hydrogen. So I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris. Thank you. Are there any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yeah, I looked at this one again because it does look at the planning. I'm quite comfortable supporting this one for the reasons already exposed by Councillor Blaine. This is a fantastic opportunity for Warrnambool Health to consolidate the future of Deakin University, and also for enhancing facilities for research into hydrogen. There are no neighbours that would be adversely affected to my knowledge. We've certainly not been given notice of any kind of objections in that line, so I'm quite happy and in fact excited for the project.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No, I'd just like to concur. I fully support this proposed amendment. The hydrocell technology hub at Deakin University is exceptional opportunity, not only for Warrnambool, for Southwest Victoria and the nation. It's leading in its field, and it's great to us for us to be here in Warrnambool, to be involved in it, and congratulations to everyone that brought it to where it is at Deakin University. I know there's many involvement, but I think it's great, so I fully support it. It's fabulous. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.3, Warrnambool Planning Scheme Amendment C204 WARR Signs Policy. Agenda page number 26. This report considers the panel report received for the Warrnambool Planning Scheme Amendment C204 WARR Sign Policy. This report recommends that Council adopts Amendment C204 WARR in accordance with the panel's recommendations and submits the adopted amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Council, is there any questions before I seek a motion on this? No, thank you. Do I have a motion? Councillor Blain, what is your motion?
That we accept the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Blain, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm supportive of this amendment. It's creating better policy and guidelines around signage. I know I said it before, but it's so everyone can understand what we can and can't do with signage, especially with trying to maintain some of the historical elements around our fabulous city, because we've got some beautiful old buildings that I'd hate to see, you know, these the electronic signs and things on. The planning panel has found that that this fits well with the ministerial direction for signage around the state and is robust against other policy guidelines. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
No,
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to it? No? Okay, thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blain, do you want to close? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimously carried. Agenda item 7.4, Domestic Animal Plan Update. Agenda page number 30. This report provides information on Council's Domestic Animal Management Plan, which has been updated in preparation for community consultation. Are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? No, thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
I'll move that the council receives the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blain. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak further to the motion?
I would. This is another instance of our council authorising a plan to be released for public comment. We've received a gratifying number of comments about other plans that have been released. It'd be nice for this one to go. I think it's one that's close to a lot of people's hearts, and council wants to act in the best interest of the community. So I'm glad to let it go out to public comment, hoping that we'll get some back.
Thank you. Councillor Blain, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, I endorse what Councillor Ziegler said. It's good this is going out. This is going out for public consultation. One thing that I think that we do really well in our municipality in Warrnambool compared to the surroundings is our really low euthanasia rate, which is really positive to see, and I hope that's something the community will support as they're providing feedback. And it's also good to see too that council staff have actually been working more at returning animals instead of taking them to the pound. It's really heartening to see that you know we're trying to look after those who are registering their pets. So I'm happy to release for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
I just wanted to add comments similar to Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Blain, just in terms of putting this out for public consultation and view. It's just interesting and also important for the community to see what does happen behind the scenes at a facility like this. And as Councillor Blain did say, just about the, I guess, the focus of officers actually returning animals, registered animals, to their owner. I think that's a really important aspect of what they do as well, which may go unnoticed sometimes or misunderstood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to reiterate the note of the effort of all the local laws officers and what they do too. What everyone's said here tonight is true. There's a lot of work, the hard work that goes behind all this for those officers. So I'd like to thank them for their diligence and note their effort especially. So thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to close the motion? Thank you. Now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.5, Road Management Plan Review 2021, agenda page number 33. The purpose of this report is to present an amended road management plan for council adoption. Any questions on this before we go ahead? No. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Blaine, what's your motion?
The council adopts the draft road management plan 2021 for implementation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
This is actually good. There's some really good things in this plan. It outlines what the expected service standards are in relation to roads in our city. It's a bit of a hard one, I suppose, to comment on. That's probably why we received no submissions. But the ideas put forward that set out realistic expectations of the service level of our roads and road infrastructure. One thing I would like to point out is that response times for issues with the roads have been lowered in the new draft road management plan compared to the old one. The lower response times is a big thing council have worked on improving to try and make our service levels more in line with community expectations. So I'm happy to see that change, and I'm happy to support the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris. Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
I've had issues with the road management plan right through the series of briefings that we've had when we've discussed this as a council. There are elements of this road management plan which don't satisfy my professional wishes in terms of defects in footpaths, mostly for in consideration of folks with disabilities, aged folks and whatnot. The trip hazards have not been addressed accurately according to Australian standards with this particular road management plan. I have been assured, by the way, by officers during the briefings that there will be an increased vigilance about correcting footpath and trip hazard discrepancies, but it's not actually written into the plan, and I believe that comes down to leaving council open to problems with insurance claims and those kind of things. But professionally, I couldn't support anything that allowed the discrepancies that are allowed by this road management plan. When I'm in work in my particular occupation, I have to try and maintain walking surfaces with the least possible trip hazards, and the road management plan as we've got it here doesn't address that adequately.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillors wish to speak? Thank you. Councillor Blaine, there being no further speakers, would you like to close?
Yes, Mayor Jelly, just quickly. On the trip hazards, I would like to point out this plan here, this is the standards that are set out for every council. These are the standards that every council in Victoria has set out to try and achieve. We have a huge footpath network here in the city, and look, I understand where Councillor Ziegler's coming from, talking about the trip hazards, but this is the tolerances that we have in this report actually fit with every other municipality in the state. So, you know, I'm still happy to support the road management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, 6. All those against? 1. Thank you. The not unanimously passed 6 to 1. 7.6 on the agenda is Community Housing Transfer Update. Agenda item, page number 36. This report seeks council approval to call for public submissions for a period of not less than 28 days as required under the Local Government Act 2020 for the 13 residential properties in this report previously being declared surplus to requirement. Are there any questions before I seek a motion? Anyone? No? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Thank you. Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
That we accept the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, just quickly on this. This is a really, this is the start of a really exciting process between Warrnambool City Council and Housing Victoria. Putting out these properties for consultation is a part of the process which we are hoping will deliver better community housing outcomes across the municipality for some of our most disadvantaged residents. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
I support Councillor Blaine in what he's just said. It's a great opportunity for council to show how we are supporting and trying very hard to support the most disadvantaged in our community. So I fully support the motion.
Thank you. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Coyce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support the idea of transferring the 13 properties over to specialised agency like DHSS, who can take care better than. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Just to support what Councillor Akosh said in terms of, I guess, transferring this type of work for council to an organisation or group that can do it better or more effectively or efficiently. Just an opportunity for council to have had a look at its service provision and see that there is an ability for it to improve in someone else's hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. I concur with everyone here tonight with the report. It's very important. Community housing isn't Warrnambool City Council's core business, so I think it's appropriate for us to pass this on to an agency that can and who will look after this well. Great working with Housing Victoria, and good to be able to ensure the transition is smooth and beneficial to the community, which that's the main thing for the whole thing. So thank you. Councillor Blaine, is there anything further you'd like to
No, thank you.
add? Thank you. Okay, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.7, Advisory Committee Reference Group Reports, agenda page number 40. This report contains the record of one reference group meeting. Any questions, councillors, before we move forward? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
I move that the officer's recommendations be approved.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak? Thank you.
I'll just speak, given I am a member of this reference group. So just an opportunity to highlight a few points from the group in terms of a couple of things. The planning and completion of the traffic calming project on Merivale Drive. Its aim is to decrease the general speed of vehicles as well as improving safety for children going to and from school around the Merivale Primary School area. Also increasing driver awareness of cyclists who also share this road. There was a Shine the Light campaign in mid-May which reiterated some messaging around motorists having their headlights on and cyclists having flashing lights fitted front and back of bicycles, as well as bright clothing to be easily seen. And also some good news with the approval of a temporary passive crossing for pedestrians at the Gillis Street level crossing from the Department of Transport. This I understand will be in place until a long-term solution can be delivered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to close? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.8, informal meetings of council report, agenda page number 41. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council, previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A number 2 of the Local Government Act 1989. Are there any questions, councillors, before we go ahead with this?
Just one proposed change, Mayor Jelly. On the 19th of the 7th, there's a typo for the time. It's 3.07p or something is the time it started.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Noted.
If we could just change it to 3 o'clock, yeah.
Yep. Thank you. So, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
That the record informal meetings held on the 24th of June, 12th, 19th, 26th of July 2021 be received with proposed amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Arnott. Thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Arnott.
No, thank you.
Any other councillor like to speak to this? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Blaine, do you want to close? Thank you. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.10, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report, agenda page number 42. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic, environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Any questions about this before we go ahead? Thank you. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
That we accept the recommendation of the officer.
Is there a second for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Paspaliaris.
No, thanks.
Any other councillor like to speak, make comment? Thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to close?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 8, there's no notices of motion. Agenda item number 9, general business. So general business is only for items of minor or routine nature that can be raised in general business. The Chair may reject any item that is not of a minor or routine nature or that meets any of the reasons listed in clause 29.2 of the governance rules. Councillors may speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. Council officers will provide an opportunity to respond or address issues raised. As I've just said there, we've got 2 minutes. If anyone wants to speak, councillors, are there any items for general business? Councillor Blaine.
Yeah, just 2 things. First, I'd like to take my hat off to the traders and the Warrnambool community for their spirit over lockdown 5.0. It's been hard on businesses and employees, and especially those that had to shut down. And I'd just like to encourage everyone to remember to keep shopping local, get vaccinated, and with a bit of luck, we'll be able to stop having these lockdowns and finally start living with the virus. And the other one was just a quick question. On the intersection of Japan and Marai Street, what works is council doing? I had a call about it late this afternoon, and I sort of had described me we're doing some line marking and then had them removed. So what's going on there? Thank you.
Thank you. That's all, Councillor Blaine? Thank you. Anyone else got anything for general business? Councillor Ziegler?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to mention the petition that's been raised for the area between Hopeton Road and King Street, which brings a lot of focus on the dangers to pedestrians for that section of the highway, and perhaps signal that we should be starting to look at that with a bit more urgency.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything? Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
We do have a meeting with the Regional Director of Regional Roads Victoria on the 26th of this month, so we're going to be looking at a whole series of different arterial route issues, Mortlake Road being another one, and just to start to push things up their radar a little bit.
Good. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I raised the same question several weeks ago at a council meeting as to when the free 1 hour car parking is going to be introduced into the CBD. At the moment, I can't see any evidence of it being introduced.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's been a fair bit to do, like to try and coordinate the meters, coordinate the app. We've had to buy a couple of hundred signs and stickers to go over signs. There's line marking to do. So there's been a lot of work that's gone on in the background. We've also had to negotiate with a couple of privately owned car parks where council manages them. So we're hopeful that in the early stages of next week that the final tinkering with the meters will be complete. But effectively, the instructions have been provided to all of the council officers that patrol it is to enable 1 hour free parking at least, so nobody has been adversely affected.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Ziegler has said about that along the Raglan Parade there. I witnessed a couple of weeks ago, went out there and stood in the middle with some other people and the person that's coordinating the main part of this and did witness children trying to cross the road there, and it's a very difficult area right along there, and I will acknowledge that there were council staff out there counting students and people trying to cross the road and how busy it was. So our officers are absolutely onto it, and I know Director Lee is definitely been in meetings and being very open with anything he's got to be able to pass on, and I'm very hopeful that something will happen there. But it's great there's meetings happening, and I think the community are really looking at that area. I know Emmanuel College are there too, because it's mainly their students trying to cross the street there, but you know, as a person myself trying to cross that road, it is difficult. So it's great that we are looking at that and working together with Transport Victoria. So thank you. No others? Thank you. Chief Executive Officer, are there any notice of items of urgent business this evening?
No, Mayor, there's not.
Thank you. Okay, so I will now, there being no further items of business, I declare the meeting to be closed at 6:43 p.m.